Welcome back to the gospel. I want to first off apologize for not having a show last week. We thought we'd be able to sneak one in, and then life happened and had to take care of a few things on Tuesday evening, which is the same evening as tonight, which we normally do the show for Wednesday, the weekend recap. But we will have all three shows for you on this week. On this evening, it will be me, your Jose, the fantasy football fiend, and my guy BK wins. Vander will be with me on tomorrow's show, and we'll kind of be versing you in the advantages that you can kind of take on your opponents as far as playoff fantasy football is concerned. But for this evening or this morning, when you may be watching this or listening to this, there is quite a bit that took place this weekend in the world of football, NFL, as well as NCAA. And we're going to hop into it, dissect a few things, complain about a few things, ask questions about a few things, scratch our head about even more. But we're going to have an absolutely terrific time doing it. Holla at the people, BK.
Hey y'all.
Remember, we are on YouTube at the Gospel STP. Again, that's at the Gospel STP. And if you haven't joined the Facebook group, that is the Gospel Sports Truth. And yeah, we give a lot of information there, direct access, questions, comments, concerns, post your highlights, your memes, have a lot of fun in a rapidly growing sports environment. But yeah, that's the Facebook group, the Gospel Sports Truth Facebook group. Let's just hop right in. I'm going to throw out a couple of games that we kind of kick the tires on, and then I have some games that ended up being pretty close this week. And I want you to pick one that you were most surprised by, and you can give your rationale for what that was and everything. But let's start out with what in the world was the former Bears head coach thinking about this past weekend? If you guys didn't see it, just to refresh your memory for some and to clue you in for others, the Chicago Bears head coach had about, I want to say, somewhere around, let's say, 30 seconds on the clock. Fourth quarter, down by three. All you have to do is call a timeout, get your team in position. He let the clock run. Just let it run. Like his mind was somewhere else, or he bet on the other team. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. But by the time they called the next play, it was only like, I want to say somewhere between 4 to 6 seconds. And that play took up every single second of that 4 to 6 seconds. So they didn't even get an opportunity to try to tie the game because of the humongous fumble, that blunder, I'll say, that happened to play previous. And BK, I don't, did you actually get to see that, whether it was live or after the
I
fact?
did. I watched it live. Yep.
Okay, I'm going to put it to you like this, BK. Put on your head coach cap, okay?
Okay.
What I want you to do is save your job by explaining to me what the hell you just did. I just want to see if there's any rationale from a football aficionado slash encyclopedia that can come up with anything that he could have been thinking that would make this close to okay.
Um. So the truth is, there is no explanation for this.
Huh?
Um. Without a doubt, this was an epic fail. But since the question was try to explain it, the best that I can say is this. Um, we thought that we had more time to get off what we needed to do at the end of the game and still kick a field goal. Um, and Um, that would be the best of a week explanation that one would have. But what I will say is this: coaches consistently in the pros and in college mismanage end of game situations. And I was taught as a little kid, you need to know score, time, and situation. Literally, when I was 5, that was ingrained in me. As a paid adult making millions, it's unacceptable. But, he'd lost the locker room forever ago. Here's the part that I have an issue with, right? All of us make mistakes. Some bigger, some smaller, some on bigger stages, some not, right? But the right thing to do, if it was him after in the press conference, was tell everyone, look, guys, we had a timeout. I thought we were going to have enough time to execute what we needed to. I dropped the ball and I cost everyone on this team this game. That's on me. It's no one's fault except for mine. I let us down. It won't happen again. Instead, he decided to double down and say, you know what? I was right about this and I would have done the same thing. And guess what? That's why you didn't make your connecting flight back to Chicago.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Exactly. Like, I mean, you can't fix stupid. And that was just absolutely, it is the perfect ending to the absolute debacle that this season has been for the Bears.
Agreed.
And it started with the Hail Mary at Landover, and they've never recovered since. So, you know what? They haven't won a game since. The players have given up on the coach, and I can't blame them. The guy, from everything I've read, has been just a hot mess express. And how can you have faith in a guy who literally has no idea what he's doing?
I couldn't agree with you more. You may have been at least given the opportunity to finish out the year if you could at least see that you made a mistake. Like if this is what you would do over again, I got nothing for you. Like that's I was baffled when he said that. I thought it was a spoof at first. I thought it was someone, just getting up there using because AI is ridiculous now. I mean, like I've gotten punked, if you will, several times watching clips, and I'm thinking it's the actual coach saying what is coming out of his. They're just great with this stuff now, but he said this and I was baffled.
The other thing, Zay, that I just can't understand, right? Not to oversimplify this, but you ran one play in the last 30 seconds with a timeout.
36.
Most teams would have run 4 plays in 30 seconds. You ran one. I can't fathom dropping the ball so badly.
That's why I say it like I don't have I can't come up with a logic. I can't come up with a reason. I can't. It literally baffles my mind. Like this, my 9-year-old wouldn't do this in math. Like, what are we doing? I don't know. But yeah, and then the I'm gonna say worse because it actually should end up being better. But now you have a guy in Caleb Williams whose confidence can't be nearly where it was coming into the year. And he's going to have to start in a brand new system. And this team was kind of built. I understand that they aren't paying the quarterback money yet, if that makes sense. But this team is built to win now. Like, and I almost feel bad for Caleb Williams because I don't know that it's his fault at this point. No empathy, no sympathy, nothing at all.
Listen, Mahomes and CJ Stroud try to take him under his wing, and he's literally told them, "No, I'm good." Has he watched himself? Has he watched any film this year? Other than probably cry to his mom all season long, I don't think he's clearly he doesn't watch film because he can't read defenses. He holds the ball too long, makes too many mistakes, and his stats are usually trash. Like, no. At the end of the day, I feel bad for him that his GM and his coach are terrible, or his coach was terrible, I should say. He still has an awful GM. By the way, thank you for him again on behalf of Washington. Thank you for taking Caleb Williams. But beyond that, Williams can't play. We knew that before the season. We knew it during the season. It'll be that way after the season. It'll be that way next year. Because the guy thinks he's better than he is. Until you realize that you need to get better, you're not going to get better.
Eagles over the Ravens. Happenstance? Or is Philly kind of getting into rare form at the right time and they may actually be the better team? I can tell you right now, that running game, both teams, the running game is ridiculous. If I'm the Giants, you talk about bad GMs. If I'm the Giants, I'm punching wind right now because you need a running back. The best running back in the league this year was on your team, wanted to be on your team, and you couldn't figure it out. And now he's the main reason why another team in your division is winning. Like, if that ain't a kick in the pants, I don't know what is. Like that's horrible on so many different levels. Not only did you let him get out of the building and he would have been your best player, he went right next door to a team that is literally in your division. And I'll be the first one to tell you, hate is not the opposite of love. Indifference is the opposite. If you notice, a lot of these guys that absolutely love their team end up going to the enemy across the street when that team doesn't want them anymore. They don't just say, "Oh, okay, well, let me just pick some rent." No, it's normally in the division. I want to see you twice a year. Thank you very much. So, yeah, he had an opportunity. I mean, this guy by himself, I want to say, when he went up against the Giants, put up more yards by himself than the Giants did as a team. So there's that piece. As far as Derrick Henry is concerned, and well, we might as well say running back 1A being Derrick Henry and running back 1B Ben Jackson, they couldn't put it off this go round. Good game. But do we think the Eagles have finally found the missing piece to take the next step? Or is this just a happenstance regular season? Get it out of your memory banks. It'll have no bearing on anything going forward.
I think for me, the game was very telling for both teams. I'm going to start with Baltimore. Baltimore, the big question for them was replacing all the starters they lost in the offseason on defense, and they haven't recovered from it. Their defense really struggles, particularly on the back end. Kyle Hamilton's all-world at safety, but outside of him, they struggled defensively, particularly in the back end. And the other part is, it's what I've been saying all along. Lamar Jackson's an exceptional, tremendous athletic quarterback. I still can't trust him to throw the ball in big games. He's not very accurate. He's not great at reading defenses. Oh, and by the way, he was playing probably the best defense in the league in the Eagles. And the big difference in this game was, A, the Eagles had the much better defense. But watch the play calling. The run play option that the Eagles ran had the Ravens in a bind. When they thought they were running, they were throwing to A.J. Brown. When they threw it to Goddard. Then when they thought they had that covered, here comes Barkley for 15. Like no matter what they did, when you can't stop one or the other, you're at their mercy. And this is Tecmo Bowl 101 or Madden 101. You got to make them one-dimensional. And the Ravens couldn't do it. The Eagles could throw it. They could run it. They did whatever they wanted. The other thing that is a real big story here because it created a problem is all-world kicker and the best kicker in NFL history, Justin Tucker, his slide continues. 2 missed field goals, an extra point. Like he coughed up 7 points himself in a game that was 14-12 for most of that game. 7 points loom large.
Yeah.
And it's not a 1 or 2 game thing. He's underperformed most of the season. That's a problem because, as they always say, you got to be sound in the kicking game. The Eagles, by the way, are in Super Bowl form.
It's a game of inches. You can't have to worry about whether or not your kicker has the yips going into the playoffs. Like you will literally get sent home because of what that kicker did or didn't do. So, are the Steelers not playoff ready? Are the Steelers a possible Super Bowl contender? And is Cincinnati done?
I'm going to start with the easy part. The Bengals are done. At 4-8, they're done.
Wait. Short term, long term.
This season, there's no playoff path for them this season. All bets are off next season because they're going to play a easier schedule, finishing as bad as they did. And I'm going to imagine that they're going to have a new head coach. And anytime that you can run out Burrow and Chase, you're going to be okay.
But are you going to be able to?
Yes.
They never paid the man.
They will.
They could have this offseason. Maybe he's bitter.
I think that if there was ill will, he would have sat out and been more of a negative influence on the team than he has been. To his credit, he's been very silent about vocalizing any ill will or malcontent throughout the year. And he's played at a high level. And Burrow has been amazing. I can't remember a team that had playoff aspirations where their quarterback stayed healthy and played at a great level, not MVP level, but has been great. And the team is terrible. As far as the Steelers go, I was having this debate with one of our colleagues earlier this week. And in fairness, they're a Steelers fan. So I take it with a grain of salt. But I was told how they're better than Kansas City. And I quickly shut that down. Here's the thing with the Steelers. The Steelers are having a terrific season. They're well coached. Their defense is top 5. Their special teams is terrific. Their offense is still mediocre. Yes, I know my timing of this is bad because they put 44 on the Bengals. But if you've been watching the Bengals, everyone scores a ton on the Bengals. So I'm not really starting a parade for the Steelers because they scored on the Bengals. You, me, and 9 friends. But here's what I'll say. The problem with the Steelers is what they've been in all year long. And this was no different. Every game they play is a 1-score game. They have a very small margin of error. And I know you could say that about Kansas City, but the difference is Kansas City is a 2-time defending champion sleepwalking through the season because they know that they can turn it on when the playoffs start. They've proven they can do that. The Steelers don't have a track record of winning any big games in recent years. It's a great story, but again, I have Andy Reid, I have Mahomes, I have Josh Allen, and I have Russ Wilson. Let's be honest. The Steelers don't have an offense that will win a Super Bowl. They're going to be lucky to win a playoff game.
I don't think Kansas City has an offense this year. Mahomes hasn't been good. Their running game has been mediocre. Kelsey hasn't been Kelsey. Like they don't have a standout wide receiver. Like past Kansas City or Kansas City with healthy weapons, completely different levels. That's it's not something Pittsburgh wants to see. But if I'm Pittsburgh, Kansas City would be the exact type of team I would want to see in the playoffs this year because I don't believe they're sleepwalking through the regular season. I believe they're actually giving it the best that they got, and the best that they got this year isn't much. I don't believe that they're in a position that they can attempt to sleepwalk through the season because of all the pieces, very valuable pieces that they have that aren't going to be there. They're one more hurt player away from not even being a shadow of themselves.
Here's the thing: they've had a lot of injuries. Pacheco's back, so now they have him and Hunt in the backfield again. And even the Steelers fan agreed with me when I said this. Until someone proves they can beat the champ, and the two-time defending champs at that, nobody's proven they can do that in 3 years in a meaningful game. Until I see somebody beat the Chiefs in a meaningful game again, it's been 3 years. When it happens, then I'll say something. Until then, no. They've played mediocre all year. As bad as they've looked at times, they're 11-1. So, like, it'd be different if we were talking about them 8-3 or 7-4 or 7-5 or 8-4. They're 11-1 playing mediocre.
BK, let's not act like 3 of those games that are in that 11 column, we wasn't coming back the next day and asking, were the refs paid off? I hear you, but I've seen the games. Like it's not as 11-1 as most 11-1s are, if that makes sense. But
I think the point about it though is it goes back to going back to the Steelers part. We saw them against the Browns, right? A 2-8 Browns team, and I know weather played a role, but they had a lot of penalties. They had turnovers. They let Winston move the ball on them. And I know Winston had a big game last night, other than he does what he does, which is throw the ball to both teams for touchdowns. But nevertheless, my point with the Steelers is, as bad as the Bengals are, and as bad as the Browns are, they were both one-score games. Now, look, I'm going to count the Broncos game last night as a one-score game because it was 9 points, and literally they had the ball on the 1-yard line. So 13 games this week were one-score games. So welcome to the NFL that every game is pretty much 85% of the games are one-score games. I get all that. Realistically, the number is more 75. But again, I say that to say that the Steelers are a really good team. They're a solid team. Could they beat Buffalo or Kansas City? Sure. Are you willing to bet on it? And the answer is, if you like making money, no.
I'm not mad at that assessment. Now, let's dig in a little bit deeper here. 3 close games. Which one surprised you the most? Las Vegas 17, Kansas City 19, New England 24, Indy 25, Atlanta 13, Los Angeles Chargers 70.
Well, I think the one that surprised me the least was the Colts and the Patriots.
No, which one surprised you the most?
Right. Well, that one surprised me the least.
Okay.
Of the other two, I mean, the obvious choice is the Chiefs struggling to beat an awful Raiders team. But I know that you're probably going to have a lot to say on that. So I'm going to touch on the Falcons and say that I'm surprised that Cousins is struggling as much as he is, given his experience. 4 turnovers last week, including a killer interception for a touchdown, a pick six. You know, and he had an awful game against Denver. He had an awful game against the Steelers. He had an awful game against the Chargers. This is a guy making a lot of money who's seen it all in his career. I would expect in some of those throws, I've seen rookies this year like Bo Nix and Jane Daniels not make. So I'm a little concerned about the mental mistakes he's making and to the degree they are. Because anybody can make a mistake. He's making 3, 4, 5 a week. You can't do that. Not in a division you're supposed to win when you went all in the offseason.
See, you thought I was going to zig, but I was going to zag. That was actually the game that I was going to talk about. So I'll take Las Vegas, Kansas City. So, to be honest with you, this game surprised me in the sense that it actually did what I thought it was going to do. I know that's kind of counterintuitive, but we've seen Las Vegas have a horrible season and beat Kansas City. Like it's one of those things. Like sometimes you just have the kryptonite for Superman, and although nothing else in the entire universe would make that particular team destructible, you just have the recipe, and you have the familiarity. So I still didn't think that without their two top running backs, without Devontae Adams, with a busted up quarterback, and without Kansas City having any additional injuries or issues, 2 point game, less than 20 points. That was a little surprising to me, to be honest with you. New England, Indy, who cares? I was I was rooting for Indy at the end of the game. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna just say it. I'm gonna put it out there, BK, because I'm like, okay, this is what I want to see from my squad. Just don't win. I, that was, at this point right now, we have nothing to gain. I just need my quarterback to be able to show that he is as advertised, so we can get a T. Higgins or a DeAndre Hopkins or someone that we can depend on as a wide receiver. Whether it's someone that you got to pay a lot or someone that you don't have to pay very much because the market isn't going to be all that high on. However that works out, I need those guys to want to say yes to the money we're going to be willing to give them. Having a decent quarterback will do that. Outside of that, we got to fix ourselves through the draft. None of these games to end this season are going to do us any good by winning them in comparison to just showing that we are competitive and that there is a maybe a or a few guys that can join the team that can make it go from being a 1 point loss to being a 3 point win. I think that tends to turn the head of free agents because everyone wants to be able to kind of turn their nose up at their former team and say, see what I did here. But you don't want to go to a situation that's going to be worse than your former situation. And it's like, see, I told you was trash to begin with. Like that's basically the two different conversations. It's going to be one way or the other. So
Right.
let's move on over to college. It was rivalry week. And there were some things that happened that was just par for the course. There were some things that were head scratching. And then some things that it was just like, okay, I know it's halftime, but I'm done here. And y'all gonna have to give me a second to get this out, okay? You know how I feel about my Buckeyes. However, you also know how I feel about the coach that is currently at Ohio State University. There are three coaches that I have been begging, pleading, telling, and asking anyone who's listening or willing to listen that they don't need to be employed. Two of them are gone, still praying about day. Darvin Ham is gone, and I'm going to say it, and I don't care how you feel about it. Bill Belichick is gone. He needed to go. It was time. Okay? Can't win his brand of football without talent. And unfortunately, although he's a pretty good chef, he sucks at buying the groceries, and he refused to be the chef unless he bought the groceries. You sealed your own coffin there. Day is the last one on my please fire him list out there currently. And it's what I've been saying all year. We go into the game playing to the level of our competition. We sleepwalk for the first half and then hope, pray, and start pitching pennies in the fountains, hoping that the second half is going to put us where we need to be. I can't remember the last time that an entire class, from freshman on up to senior, didn't beat Michigan once. Once. Can't blame it on the defense. Michigan put up 13 points. What more do you want from your defense? The offense was horrible. And Ryan Day is supposed to be an offensive-minded head coach. We run the ball up the middle like 30 times, which is the teeth of the Michigan defense. Their number one cornerback is out of the game. You may not want to hear this, Ryan Day, but it is what it is. Under your charge, Ohio State has been a finesse team. But now all of a sudden you want to show that we can, brawl with the big. You know what happens when heavyweights brawl? A lot of times the guy that was supposed to win don't, because it only took one punch. And that's how I feel this game ended up working out. There was no offensive creativity. And we just came out still, stagnant. And I've seen it too many times in big games with Ryan Day. It's always this way with Ryan Day in big games. And I'm over it. You can't be it, but here's the beautiful part about it, BK. You got my dark cloud, here's my silver lining, okay? The silver lining is this. One or two things are going to happen. We're still in the playoffs. We're either going to win a championship or Ryan Day is going bye-bye. One or the two. Because the only way we don't win a championship is if you lose again against another team that you shouldn't have lost against. Now, if we lose in the championship against a better team, may be different. I don't think we make it to the championship. I not playing the way we played this weekend. Michigan is a middle of the pack team. I literally believe they're a 500 team right now after beating us, if I'm not mistaken. I may be off, but pretty sure they're like 6-6, 7-6, something like that, somewhere around there. But they're middle of the pack team. They're 7-5. Okay, so middle of the pack team. I'm over it. I bring Urban Meyer. See if you can pay. I'd take Deion Sanders. Sure would. If you could take a team that was averaging 1 to 2 wins a year and get them to a bowl, you could take a team that's averaging 1 to 2 losses a year and make up 1 or 2 losses. I know how you feel about Deion. I'm just venting right now, BK, okay? You can't do much worse than Ryan Day. Based on the talent you have, you're normally going to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. Other than if it's Michigan, which, I'm sorry, Michigan, as far as I'm concerned, has now had a successful season because they beat us. And unless we win a championship, our season as Buckeyes was not successful. Deep breath. Don't burn your microphone.
Scorched earth. My big goal each week is to not break my camera. So, because I keep getting told the ratings go down when people can see me. So, at any rate, So here's the thing. Whether it be empowering employees at work, or now in my endeavor in coaching a growing number of people playing pickleball, I instill upon people preparation, due diligence, but be confident. Play with confidence, believe in yourself, and most importantly, stay true to yourself and never stop believing that you're going to win. Expect to win. And the thing that is baffling to me about Coach Day, and look, while the outcome was the outcome the last 3 years, both the teams were really good teams. They were great teams the last 3 years. So either Michigan or Ohio State could have won the last 3 years. This year, Ohio State was a top 2 or 3 team all season long. They spent $20 million in NIL to get a loaded team so that this didn't happen again. And Michigan was a 500 team all year, and their best result was a close loss to Indiana. I guess if you count beating a 500 USC team, I guess maybe that was the best result coming into that one. But here's the difference. And I normally don't say something like this, but I'm dead serious. Had I coached this Saturday, we would have beat Michigan. Because it's at this point, it's not when I have a huge talent advantage and I'm a 23-point home favorite and the other team can't throw a forward pass and they're missing their 2 best weapons, star corner All-American Will Johnson, who, by the way, would have been covering All-World Jeremiah Smith, okay? And Colston Loveland, the tight end, who's one of the best playmaking tight ends in the country. And neither one of them play, and you can't throw a forward pass, yet I watched the running back run for $116. How does that happen? And the guy, so here's the thing. Coach Day, when he was an offensive coordinator and assistant coach, he was the definition of ultra aggressive. He was throwing the ball off the bus. And then he became the CEO. And all of a sudden, you play, your players are a reflection of your leadership. He coaches tight. He is tight. He coaches not to lose versus being aggressive and playing to win. Your advantage in this game, and I know what he said. I know it was windy at the stadium. I'm aware. I also understand that the team that's now out gains on the ground, the other team has now won the game 23 straight years, and running the ball matters. I get that too. At the end of the day, if I'm the coach, it's my job to put myself in the best position to succeed, which is spread them out, don't deal with the interior of the Michigan defense, and I'm going to put Jeremiah Smith and I'm going to throw all over you the whole game. I'm going to make you stop our passing game. And to sit there and not target Jeremiah Smith in the second half, you literally lost to a team where you didn't let your best player touch the ball. And by the way, here's the other part. You talk about coaching. They played tight. They weren't confident. They played afraid to lose. They had too many. They didn't have penalties. They did have a costly penalty that gave Michigan a first down. But they were sloppy on special teams. Their game plan offensively was terrible. And look, the defense was great, but the game plan wasn't great because you let the only guy who was going to hurt you run for 116 yards. Stop the run, put it in the box, and make them throw. This is not hard. The coaching game plan was terrible. And oh, by the way, and I say this tongue in cheek because y'all know I love being right. What have I told you all year about Will Howard? The guy's a marginal quarterback. And by the way, here's the biggest indictment on Day. Two things. 47-1 in all Big Ten games other than against the team up north. Number two. Imagine this offensive machine that Ohio State has. And they had the quarterback, they jettisoned Kyle McCord, who, by the way, threw for almost 400 yards and 4 touchdowns against the Canes. You couldn't get rid of McCord fast enough, who was in a pressure-packed situation in his first year on the job. You panicked. You got rid of the better guy to bring in a guy who hasn't won a big game in his life. I'm sorry. What are we doing? By the way, who made that move? Ryan Day.
At this point, I feel like you're getting what you're supposed to get if you don't make a change. We know what we're going to get. Lord, don't let my team turn into the Cowboys, because that's the direction I feel we're going in. Like, all we can talk about now is the past. Like, at least we're still making it to the playoffs, though. Whether it's a 4-team or 12-team, we're probably going to make it to the playoffs. So, no, we're not like the Dallas Cowboys. We're like the Buffalo Bills of old. We'll make it to the big dance, but then we're going to sit down in our seat when it's time to dance. That's just what we're doing at this point. Carolina beats Clemson. So at least there's a little bit of happy news. We started the season thinking that Beamer was on the hot seat, knowing that Beamer was on the hot seat. And I'm going to say this, Carolina fans, don't beat me up. You still need to get rid of Beamer. It ain't Beamer. It's Sellers. It's the quarterback that's winning these games straight up. I know you can't. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I know you can't, ending a season with the highest ranking that you've ended with for quite some time now. But there's still something not quite there. And maybe the something not quite there, it has nothing to do with the coach. Maybe it's I need another year to kind of fill in a few gaps with some people that are now going to be willing to go to the school because they see that we're a mover and shaker. And maybe the SEC isn't quite as difficult as it used to be. Maybe with Saban gone and everyone paying everybody money, now your fourth string can't be somebody that would have been starting at another school. Now they're going to take the paycheck and take the starting job at the other school versus being the backup to the backup's backup in Alabama and Georgia. So we may see a turning of the tide in general. As far as the regular season is concerned, I really don't feel like we've had. I know everyone was, oh, if we go to this 12-team playoffs, the regular season won't be exciting. This is one of the most exciting regular seasons I can remember. Like, everything is literally coming down to this weekend for several teams. There's other teams that it's like, man, look, you give Boise State a bye and home field advantage, I don't know that you're going to beat them. Like it's we have some conversations that in yesteryear we would have never been able to have. This same Boise State team wouldn't have been in the playoffs. They'd have been at home with a great record explaining why they should have the opportunity. Things are different in South Carolina, in college football in general, and I want to know your opinion on both.
So, as a Carolina fan, I think the world of Coach Beamer, and there's no question he was on the hot seat before the season started. But he is absolutely the right guy for the job. He's a really good coach, and he's even a better person. His leadership skills are terrific, and this team has gotten hot down the stretch. And I mean, they blew out A&M. They blew out Oklahoma. They won. By the way, that Oklahoma team that blew out Bama at home, Carolina blew out Oklahoma on the road in a game that was over at the half. Um, Carolina beat the Orange team in the rivalry this weekend. I don't know too many people that had Carolina at 9-3.
No.
So for me, I thought it was more of a 7-5 year. So for them to get 9-3 is a tremendous year, and they're only going to get better because their key players, as long as they keep getting paid, are all coming back. This is a fun team. They are hot. I really am proud of the season they've had, regardless of whether they get in the playoffs, and we can debate that on another show. But in terms of their season, tremendous success. They should feel great about all that they've accomplished. As far as the playoff part, so I know that I'm going to have an unpopular view on this, and that's okay. While I agree that this is the most wide open playoff we've had in forever because there's not a dominant team, Oregon's probably the most complete team, but every team has their warts. And so it will make for an exciting playoff because any team can probably win, or most of the teams have a chance to win. But here's why I don't like it. I listen to social media and I read, it's our job. I read the comments and the fans, and they got screwed and they should be in and they should be out. Look, guys, don't hate me. This is the facts. Most years when there was a 4-team playoff, we struggled to find 4 teams that deserved to be in. Usually the 4th team was a team that had no business being in. Last year was the exception where we had 5 or 6 teams. Okay. This year, there's at most 5 teams that should make the playoffs. So now I'm listening to 7 other teams make the playoffs that are mediocre. Yes, Miami, who should have 4 losses. They don't belong in the playoff. I don't want to hear it. You play in a lousy conference and you haven't won any game of consequence and you look terrible in most of the games you play. Get out of here. Bama, 3 losses. Ole Miss, 3 losses. Carolina, 3 losses. Boise State, who have you beaten? I'll stop. Name a team. Again,
Power 5 conference. All you got to do is win your conference.
And I understand the technicalities of how it happens. My point is, we're going to have a lot of mediocre teams who aren't playoff worthy make the playoffs. And for me personally, as a fan, I don't want to watch teams that don't belong there be in the playoffs. Nobody thinks those teams are really playoff teams. Let me rephrase that. Nobody objectively who understands football thinks these are playoff teams.
And I disagree with you, BK.
Yeah, and you're wrong.
Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. And this hurts. Different sport, same sport, but you'll get my drift. Picture this. 2007. The New England Patriots have an opportunity to go undefeated, be the first team since the Miami Dolphins, the 72 Miami Dolphins, to be undefeated. Nobody in their right mind would have let the New York Giants into the playoffs that year. Mediocre team. I want to say they were just north of 500, and they ended up sneaking in. NFC East was horrible that year. They ended up sneaking in. Why? Because they won their division. Won the whole doggone thing. That's what I think is going to happen this year, DK. One of those teams that you're saying shouldn't have never been given a chance. This is the year where the blue bloods all go home. There isn't a. I don't even consider Oregon to be a blue blood. There's going to be a non-traditional college team, if you will, college football team that's going to win it all. And we play the games for a reason. It's not NBA playoffs with a 7 games to the cream will rise to the top. No, I just have to be better than you today. Michigan would have put Ohio State out of the playoffs, and everyone would have said Michigan didn't deserve to be there. They were better that day. That's all that matters. I think what this does is it takes out the, well, you should be a whole lot better than you've been playing, and because I believe that you're better than you've been playing, I'm still going to put you there. You still have a little bit of that at that 10, 12, 10, 11, 12 spot somewhere in there. There's going to be some people that get in, you're like, what? But at the end of the day, I believe we will see something happen in college ball that we haven't seen in a very long time, which is not knowing by the end of week 6 of the season who the most likely champions are going to be. And I love it. I can't wait till they go to 16. And it'll be one day at some point where 16 will take out a 1. It just, like you always say, the level of emotion that goes into college football, it's just different. Like, you can't prepare yourself. Like, the team that's more emotionally intelligent, if you will, in college football is the team more likely to win, not necessarily the most talented team. Because man for man, Ohio State was a 23-point favorite for a week. 23 points? 23? 23. Like, come on, man. And it's a rivalry game. 23? The talent isn't close. One team was better prepared to deal with the moment. And I just can't wait until the end of this year. I believe we're going to see some spectacular moments. That doesn't negate your point that maybe they shouldn't have been there. The 16 seeds in the NCAA shouldn't have been there. There are teams in the NCAA every year that nobody saw coming that end up making it further than anyone ever thought they would get, and they were on the bubble. So I'm not attempting to deny or negate your point. I'm just saying, for me, I'm just glad they're going to be meaningful football games instead of the Little Caesars Bowl and the Toilet Bowl or whatever else they got out there and all these nonsense. But you may still have those, but based on the way that it's set up now, I'm actually going to have games that I want to see based on knowing what's going to happen next versus it just being football's on today, but I won't be watching it. Like, that's kind of how I feel the playoffs make some of these bowls that wouldn't be bowls worth watching. Last comment while we wrap it up. Anything else for the people?
Interested what you think about the upcoming conference championship games this weekend in college football. You got the team that I've been telling you for 7 weeks now is going to win the ACC. That's right, the Ponies, the SMU Mustangs. They get Clemson this week. Arizona State, Iowa State. We got, of course, Penn State versus Oregon. Can Franklin finally beat a top 5 team? He's got Ryan Day syndrome, so we'll see how that goes.
Facts.
And then, of course, the rematch, Texas versus the Dogs. So we saw the first time the Dogs manhandled them. Will it be different this time?
I think it will be, but I think it'll be the same outcome. I got to roll with the Dogs. It'll be interesting to see where a lot of these teams that, like, if they were the higher seed in their conference championship, how far would they be pushed back? Because can you really beat somebody up for making it to a game that nobody else had to play? Like, as far as the end of year rankings are concerned, like, do you really want to set the precedent that making it to the division or championship or conference championship can be detrimental to your playoff hopes?
So here's the one thing, and I would have a hard time penalizing team for having success and getting to the conference title game. But here's the one little bugaboo, right? And I'm going to use a little committee buzzword here. There's a cluster of teams that are on the cusp of the bottom end of the playoffs. The Miami, the Ole Miss, the Bama, the Carolina, those teams, right? So here's a nightmare scenario for some of these situations. So we know that the ACC has been garbage this year, right? We know that the SEC and the Big Ten have been far better, as you like to call them, the Big 20. We know they've had a lot better season. So imagine Clemson upsetting SMU, and SMU comes in around what, 8-ish in the 8 or 9 in these rankings.
SMU is at 8 right now.
If they lose to Clemson, Clemson's an automatic bid. They're in. If Clemson wins, they're certainly not going to have 3 ACC teams given that conference.
Nope.
If Clemson wins, I'm going to go as far as to say it's going to knock them both out. Because SMU doesn't have the quality wins, and Miami's already on the fringe. They're on 12. If Clemson go, honestly, I think that if you're looking for a danger area where if I'm a Ole Miss or Carolina fan, that would be the argument that I would make. You need SMU to lose that game and Clemson to win to help knock out, because I think Clemson knocks out both of them if they get in. Just my own personal opinion. How do you feel about that?
I think that amongst other situations will be what is so exciting about this offseason in comparison. About this post regular season in comparison to others. Winning or losing can change so much. Whereas in seasons past, going into this weekend, we kind of already had an idea of who the top teams are going to be unless something catastrophic happened. So I don't know. I'm more excited, and maybe it's just because it's something new. But I'm more excited this postseason for college football than I have been in a while. So I just want to see how it all shakes out, and whether I have something that I can just pat the committee on the back about, or if it's like, see, I don't care if it's 12 or 20, they're going to screw this up. I want to know which side of the aisle I'm going to be on by the time it's said and done.
You know, the one thing I can tell you, Zay, with 100% confidence, I can unequivocally say, without a shadow of a doubt, and I guarantee this, I'm going to be able to watch Selection Sunday and know that my Knowles won't get screwed again this year. And that's the truth.
And that, sir, is definitely the truth. They're going to get exactly what they deserve. And that pretty much wraps it up for this evening. We will see you on tomorrow with fantasy football, and again on Friday with all things sports. This is the Gospel Sports Truth Podcast. And remember, good friends, Always tell the truth.
And nothing but the truth. See y'all Friday.